Come on. There we go. Oh wait. Danton's Story of the Demonic Zozo House, Mystery Archives. I'm already subscribed. You should do the same. Subscribe to me. Alright, let's start.
Throughout history,
35
it
minutes.
has been speculated that many have been plagued by an ancient demonic force. From Mesopotamia to more modern times, this evil and terrifying entity has said to enter our world and wreak havoc upon those who dwell within it. When a seemingly normal family disregards the warnings and partakes in multiple Ouija board sessions, what happened next nearly destroyed them. This is the untold story of the demonic Zozo House of Oklahoma and the abhorrent creature that stalks its walls.
I'm excited about this one. Nice little intro there, Mystery Archives. I'll read this, yeah. The following video contains information derived from first-hand accounts, legends, and history. Draw your own conclusions. I'm not associated with anyone mentioned. All stories are for entertainment only. Got you, mystery. Got you.
Oklahoma City, a small but growing city in the heartland of America, known for blue-collar work and brick-and-mortar shops, red dirt, and sports, would soon become known for something much darker.
Never underestimate the power of kindness. But of course, not that.
D&D.
A teenager by the name of Darren Evans was growing up here. A normal boy by all accounts, doing things that any teenagers would enjoy. Hanging out with friends, shenanigans here and there, and dating girls. He began
Hell yeah, teenage lifestyle, I guess.
dating a girl named Brandy who attended school with him, and the two often found themselves visiting each other as often as they could, whether that was walking to and from school, in between classes, or visiting each other's homes. One day, while Brandy's home was having some plumbing work done on some pipes located underneath the house, the plumber doing the work would soon make a strange discovery. Located below the foundation of the home, covered in dirt, was an old Ouija board. The front letters were partially buried, and the back of the board was solid black in color. Off to the side
It sounded like it was burned.
of where the board was found was an aged planchette. What made this finding even more bizarre was that 4 old jars sat on the corners of the board, speckled with dirt as well. Thinking perhaps the kids had stashed the board away and forgot about it, the worker told the young couple after his work was done about what he had found. And it's from here that things seemingly take a darker turn. Upon examining the discovery, they began to brush the dirt away from the jars. They were then shocked by what they found.
Baby remains. Resident Evil reference.
Inside each one of the jars, sitting on the 4 corners of the board, were the decaying bodies of blackbirds.
Oh, I was off.
Congealed blood and matter still present. Bewildered but intrigued, they sat the jars off to the side and picked up the board. As soon as his fingers made contact with the board, Darren seemed to have an instant connection with it. And with this soon came a burning curiosity to examine it. And this curiosity would manifest into obsession. With this, the couple took the board inside the home where they spoke with Brandy's mother. She actively practiced the Wiccan religion, but had no idea who
Talk to her as in person or with the Ouija board?
could have put the board there. Several days later, curious as most teenagers are, Darren was an avid music fan, and one night, after building up the courage to do it, he decided he was going to contact the deceased singer of the popular band
Bro, that...
AC/DC, a man named Ronald Belford Scott, using the board.
I mean, W, but like why?
Scott had passed away from alcohol poisoning in 1980. After lighting several candles, laying the board with letters facing towards him, and placing the planchette upon the board, he began his session. At first, nothing seemed to happen, but Darren was still feeling this otherworldly connection to something within the board itself. After trying for half an hour, to his shock and amazement, the planchette began to move. Slowly at first, it then frantically began to move by itself, moving from Z to O, Z to O, over and over and over again, spelling out the name, Zozo.
Fucking caption said so.
Shocked and unsure of what or who he had contacted, Darren said goodbye in an attempt to end the session.
It didn't do it. I bet it didn't
Before
want
his
to.
eyes, he saw the planchette spell out, "See you in hell," and then it threw itself across the room. A now terrified and bewildered Darren ran out of his room,
Yeah, I'm
tried to
crying
make sense
like a
of what
little
had
bitch.
just taken place. But this was just the beginning of what was to come. It started with horrible night terrors. He would wake up unable to move or speak, and would hear whispering in his ears. These episodes at night were soon followed by banging and knocking throughout his house during the daytime, as well as a constant feeling as if he was being watched by something he couldn't see. But despite the presence he was feeling, Darren now sought answers to his ever-growing list of questions, just what exactly he had uncovered. So, he continued to hold sessions with the board, for better or for worse. Darren would later quote this: "The sessions now were as intense and paranormal as anything I've ever
Yeah, I'm low-key scared.
witnessed. A deep and terrible moaning could be heard emanating through the walls after these sessions. I developed sleep paralysis and became reclusive to society in general. I was once again messing with Zozo and Ouija boards, despite the terrors of my earlier sessions, in which I had promised myself I would
I don't understand people. Oh, let me have the scariest experience of my life. Let me do it again.
never do it again. But again and again, I did. When not in use, the board was kept in a purple silk cloth and stored in his bedroom closet. It would also often go
He's wrapping that
missing,
shit in silk. Like, what the fuck?
sometimes for days on end. When checking back where he had placed it in order to set up and initiate a new session, the board would seemingly vanish, only to reappear at random times, as if it was the one calling the shots of when it could be seen and used.
Oh no.
The years came and went, and the sessions on the mystical Ouija
The years came and went, so he's been doing this for fucking years.
continued.
Bro, idiot.
Darren, by this time, started inviting his friends to partake in the sessions. And although their sessions with him would prove he's not insane, it's of little consolation considering the tragedy they would seemingly manifest later on. Darren's best friend was a man by the name of Randy. The two had bonded over their love for the band AC/DC in high school and had been
We never got to find out if he talked to the singer or not.
inseparable ever since. Randy's idol also being the late Bon Scott, whose lifestyle seemingly imprinted upon the youthful teens once upon a time, and perhaps would ultimately lead to the downfall of one of them. By now, Darren was living in his own apartment and working construction. At a job site he was on, he would make a strange but familiar discovery. As he was digging down into the earth, he found what appeared to be a jar. Upon picking it up to discard it, he wiped away the dirt and debris, only to be shocked by its familiar contents. Lo and behold, within the jar was a congealed and rotting blackbird, extremely similar, if not identical, to the ones initially found alongside the Ouija board underneath his high school girlfriend's home all those years ago. It was particularly weird, not just because of this, but the fact that he had found it, digging down deep into the earth. He wondered, what were the odds of this? And although he had no way of knowing for sure, his gut began to tell him that there was some kind of witchcraft or occult expertise at play here. Perhaps someone or a group of people were knowingly contacting this entity known as Zozo, but for what remained to be known. One evening,
I missed that.
of
Go back a
people
little bit.
he said this, and although he had no way of knowing for sure, his gut began to tell him that there was some kind of witchcraft or occult expertise at play here. Perhaps someone or a group of people were knowingly contacting this entity known as Zozo, but for what remained to be known. One evening in 1985, Darren and Randy were relaxing at Darren's apartment when they decided to host a session on the Ouija board. Randy, more than anything, wanted to try and make contact with his late idol, Bon Scott.
He's still trying that? What the hell?
While wearing a Highway to Hell AC/DC shirt, Randy's intent was clear.
Idiot.
Two dimmed the lights, lit
What
a
a
couple of
fucking-
candles, and began the session
Oh my god,
upon
Highway
the
to
board.
Hell shirt.
They
While
made
talking
contact
to a Ouija
within
board
a
is
few
crazy.
minutes. Once the planchette was moving, Randy exclaimed, "We want to talk to Bon Scott of AC/DC." With this sentence, the planchette seemingly obliged. It moved in circles, eventually spelling out AYEMATE. The two looked at each other in amazement. The entity was using Australian dialects. And for anyone who doesn't know, Bon Scott was Australian.
Yeah,
After several more
that
questions,
is true.
both of the young men were convinced they were speaking with their idol. The spirit seemed to know every little detail to any question they asked. And during the session, the entity then made a strange request from the men. It asked them to light a cigarette and place it in the hole in the planchette. What proceeded to make both of them laugh
Oh no. They did it, I bet.
also made them quite spooked as well. So they lit a couple cigarettes, one for each of them, and one for this entity. They took a few drags to keep it lit, and then placed it cherry side up in the planchette hole. The planchette then spelled out thanks. They then watched in utter amazement as the cherry of the cigarette lit up as if Bond himself was taking puffs off of it.
Yo, that's actually fucking crazy. Like, what? Not the dude that would. No, I won't be messing with that.
But this amusement was short-lived.
Wish I could have seen that.
Once
though.
the cigarette had seemingly been smoked, the planchette began to spell something very different. It spelled, F you, Randy. I will have your soul, and I'll see you in hell. Z.O.
That's when you dap up your homie like, hey, I'm outie and about it.
Z.O. Terrified, the men quickly ended the session by saying goodbye and tossing the board outside the second-story apartment balcony door. Clearly scared and upset, Randy also didn't take kindly to threats. He began cussing out Zozo with complete and utter rage. The board would later be returned by his downstairs neighbor. And after this session, a series of lows for both of the men seemed to manifest in the years to come. Influenced by the lifestyle of his idol, Randy fell victim to alcoholism. He soon would lose his wife to divorce and have split custody with his son. And although many opportunities presented themselves for Randy to better his life, for one reason or another, he was always just too far away to be able to grasp them. He often said to Darren, I feel like I'm in a prison, and I can't escape.
That dude got cursed.
For old time's sake, the two did one last Ouija board session together in 2005, in which Randy asked the board how he would die. The board responded, in a car, at night, alone. In 2007, after spending the evening with Darren, the last words he would say to him were, Darren, I will see you in hell. The next morning, Darren received a phone call from Randy's girlfriend, Alicia.
Nah, he had to be possessed. There's no way he just
saying
said
that
that
Randy
casually.
never made it home after he left. Instead, he had passed away in a violent head-on collision, ultimately passing away in a car at night and alone. This devastating passing, along with the frequent contact with the entity known as Zozo over the years, led to a fascination and borderline obsession with a search for answers for Darren Evans. During the time before and after Randy's death, he had been living in a home in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, that would become synonymous with the demon's name. It was here that the worst afflictions brought on by the entity would take place to him and his family.
Okay.
Darren's fascination with the occult led him to hanging on to and possessing multiple Ouija boards and other
Multiple? Are you serious,
various
dude?
occult objects. It was here that he began to study on a much more in-depth and organized basis, just trying to figure out who or what Zozo was.
Do you really need to figure this out, bro? Like,
But this research would soon be interrupted. In this home lived himself, his wife Kathleen, and their young daughter at the time. During a session
alright, so 3 people living here.
with his wife Kathleen one evening,
Even his wife's part of it. It's fucking wild.
while their daughter slept rooms away, Zozo would once again make itself present in their lives, but this time seemed to take possession of Darren. Kathleen trembled with fear and bated breath as something stared at her through Darren's eyes. Something that clearly wasn't human. He then turned violent, attempting to attack her. Fortunately for Kathleen, she was able to say goodbye and get away before any harm could be done to her. Several minutes later, Darren would come back to himself with no memory of what had taken place.
Sorry, yeah. That I heard something.
After this session, things seemed to escalate in intensity. Sounds began to wrap throughout the entire home, from knocking to hissing, footsteps and banging, all seemingly with no explainable origin. The family got so terrified that they sectioned off a particular bedroom upstairs, calling it their safe room. One night, however,
Ain't no such thing as a safe room dealing with some shit like this.
not everyone was within the safe room. Suddenly, an overwhelming sense of terror creeped upon Darren as he was trying to sleep.
Dude,
He rushed to the
Frankenstein.
safe room to attempt to stop what he was feeling, but quickly realizing he couldn't leave his family behind, he rushed back out of the room in an attempt to gather them and bring them to safety as well. As he was heading towards the stairs, his daughter had heard his cries and was now at the foot of the stairs. It was here that Darren saw her being lifted by invisible hands into the air and carried away from him.
Oh no.
Screaming for his child as she screamed for her father, Darren ran down the stairs as fast.
I know the video's not actually that dude running, but bro, that dude's walking.
As he possibly could, but couldn't see her anywhere in sight.
What the fuck is that?
He then heard her muffled screams coming from the basement. At first, the door was locked and wouldn't open, but after adrenaline and brute force, Darren thankfully was able to open it. He then retrieved his hysterical child and brought her to the safety of the safe room.
Where's the wife at?
Once inside the room, the family huddled together in fear
Oh,
as they
she
continued
was
to
in
hear
there.
movement and noises all throughout the house. After this abhorrent nightmare of a situation, the family knew they had to get out of the house. This situation and the many other paranormal experiences had led to a lifelong fascination for Darren Evans with the occult and finding out just exactly what Zozo is. But was it worth jeopardizing his family's safety? It took some time, but the family would soon relocate to another home. And once his family was safe, Darren was able to continue his deep dive into the unknown to try and track down and decipher just what this entity could be and where it came from. And although he knew the topic was vast, I think it went far deeper than he ever anticipated. Whilst trying to dig up more information, he posted his experiences to an old paranormal forum in 2009, and since then, many people have shared their experiences with the demonic force.
alright, yeah. We'll have to finish this in part 2.